On the night of their 30th wedding anniversary, Lily uncovers a devastating secret. Her husband, James, has been having an affair with his high school sweetheart for months. What was meant to be a night of celebration becomes a brutal, public confrontation as Lily exposes the shocking betrayal to everyone they know. Now, with her world torn apart, she's left to confront the raw pain of betrayal and decide if she can ever rebuild the life he destroyed. Lily stood in front of the full-length mirror in their bedroom, adjusting the delicate clasp of her necklace. Her hands trembled slightly as she traced the smooth chain, but it was only because of the excitement. The anniversary was here after all. 30 years of marriage, 30 years of love, sacrifice, and memories. She smiled at her reflection, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. There was a quiet stillness in the air, a calm before the storm that she couldn't quite shake. The necklace, a gift from James years ago, sparkled under the dim light, a symbol of everything she had built with him. It was supposed to be a night of celebration, a moment to reflect on the good times, the triumphs of their life together. But something felt off, as if the night had already been marked by an invisible shadow. She couldn't pinpoint it. Downstairs, the house hummed with activity. The caterers were putting the finishing touches on the tables, filling crystal glasses with champagne and adjusting the flowers. The room was a soft glow of white and gold, just like the life they had shared. Warm, stable, but predictable. She could hear James downstairs as well, greeting guests. His deep voice boomed through the house, greeting old friends, shaking hands, and exchanging pleasantries with ease. To everyone else, he was the same man they had always known. The dependable, successful husband, father, and friend. But Lily had been married to him long enough to sense when something wasn't quite right. There was a restlessness about him these past few months, an odd hesitancy in his smile, a stiffness in his voice when he spoke of the future. He would sometimes go out for late business meetings, or take phone calls that he would quickly hang up when she walked into the room. The small, seemingly inconsequential signs had started to pile up, and Lily's stomach churned with the weight of them. Tonight, she had tried to put it all aside. The anniversary was a milestone. She had planned the evening meticulously, hoping to remind them both of how much they had built together. She had chosen the perfect dress, the right flowers, the menu, and even the playlist that was meant to take them back to their youth. But with every passing moment, her unease grew. She picked up her clutch from the vanity and turned toward the stairs. She had been married to James for 30 years, but tonight, something felt different, unspoken, hidden behind the laughter, the clinking of glasses, and the soft music in the background. James was the first to greet her as she descended the stairs. His eyes lit up when he saw her, and for a brief moment, the tension she'd been carrying seemed to dissipate. He kissed her cheek, his lips warm, though his hug lingered just a moment too long. It wasn't quite right, but she dismissed the feeling as a fleeting thought. "You look beautiful, darling," he said, his voice soft but hurried. "Thank you," she replied, forcing a smile. They moved into the living room together, joining their guests. It was easy to slip into the rhythm of conversation. Their friends and family filled the space, each conversation a blur of familiarity and nostalgia. But through it all, Lily couldn't shake the nagging sense that something was about to be revealed. It was as though she could feel the truth just beneath the surface, threatening to come out in a way she wasn't prepared for. Her gaze flickered toward the doorway where Sarah stood. It wasn't the first time she had seen her. Sarah had been part of their life for years, an old friend of James from high school, someone they both knew well. She had attended their wedding, shared holiday meals, and even had a hand in planning the children's birthday parties. But tonight, Lily couldn't stop looking at her. Sarah was the same as always, confident, poised, and effortlessly beautiful. though there was something about her presence tonight that unsettled Lily. Sarah smiled warmly when she saw Lily, but the smile seemed almost rehearsed. Lily excused herself for a moment and stepped outside onto the balcony, feeling the cool night air on her face. She closed her eyes for a second, trying to steady her thoughts. It had been a long time since she had let her mind wander like this, and she couldn't help but feel guilty for what she was thinking. But there it was, the nagging, undeniable feeling that something had been happening behind her back. She had never been the type to accuse without evidence, but something was different this time. The signs had been small at first, tiny little fragments of a bigger picture that she had tried to ignore. James's sudden absences, his guardedness. And now, there was Sarah, standing just a little too close to James in the corner of the room, laughing just a little too loud at his jokes, touching his arm just a little too familiarly. Lily shook her head, trying to push the thought away. She had to focus on the evening. Tonight was supposed to be about their family, their love, their years together. But as the evening wore on, Lily's suspicion only deepened. It wasn't just the way Sarah kept glancing at James, or the way James kept excusing himself for one phone call after another. It was everything. The way his voice had become distant. The way his eyes seemed to linger on Sarah for just a second too long. And then, there was the conversation she overheard in the kitchen between James and one of their close friends. It was brief, just a few words, but it was enough. "I can't keep doing this, James," the voice on the phone had said. "She's starting to suspect. We need to make our move soon." Lily's heart had dropped. She had tried to tell herself she was imagining things, but now she knew she wasn't wrong. The affair wasn't just a passing flirtation. It was real, and it had been going on far longer than she could have ever imagined. She closed her eyes and let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. She felt a sharp sting in her chest, as if her heart had been sliced open. She wasn't angry yet, no, that would come later. Right now, she felt something much colder, betrayal. She had spent 30 years building a life with James. They had created a family, shared their dreams, their fears, their laughter, and their tears. And yet, here she was, standing in the ruins of that life, watching it crumble piece by piece. James found her a moment later, stepping out onto the balcony, his face a mix of concern and guilt. "Lily, are you all right?" She turned to him slowly, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. "I know," she whispered. For a long moment James didn't say anything. He just stared at her, his face pale. He knew she knew. The party continued behind them, a world of laughter and celebration that felt so far removed from what was happening in that moment. The anniversary party that had been meant to honor their life together had just become the stage for the truth to be laid bare. And Lily, standing on the balcony, could feel the weight of that truth bearing down on her. Everything had changed. Lily didn't move when James stepped closer, but she could feel the weight of his presence, the tension that clung to the air between them. The words she had been holding in for months, no years, were ready to break free. It wasn't just the affair. It was everything. The quiet loneliness, the years of wondering where their connection had gone, the sacrifices she had made for a marriage that now seemed like a shadow of what it once was. "I know about Sarah," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "I know about the texts, the calls, everything." James took a step back, his face pale. He ran a hand through his hair, looking down at the ground as if trying to find an escape from the truth. His chest rose and fell with each breath, but no words came. Lily could see the guilt written all over him, but there was something else too, fear. Fear of the consequences, of the life they had built shattering in an instant. "I didn't mean for this to happen, Lily," he finally said, his voice strained. "It was just, I don't know. We lost something along the way. It was just supposed to be harmless." Lily closed her eyes for a moment, the sting of his words slicing through her. harmless. She had given him everything: her youth, her love, her dreams. She had put her career on hold, stayed home to raise their children while James went off to build his career. All the while, she had trusted him, trusted that their commitment to one another meant something. And now, he was telling her that it was harmless. She shook her head slowly. "Harmless," she whispered. "For years, James, I've watched you pull away little by little. The late nights, the strange phone calls. I've noticed, but I ignored it, convinced myself it was nothing. And now this." She motioned toward the house, toward the party, the people inside who had no idea of the destruction that was unfolding right under their noses. "I never wanted to hurt you," James said, his voice breaking. "It just happened, Lily. I didn't know how to stop it." Lily's lips trembled. "You didn't know how to stop it. You didn't even try." Her voice cracked, and she swallowed hard. "James, you've been having an affair with her, haven't you?" James hesitated. For a moment, it felt like the world had paused around them, like everything had slowed down. He was looking at her now, not with guilt, but with a kind of reluctant honesty that hurt more than anything else. "Yes," he admitted finally, his voice barely above a whisper. I've been seeing Sarah for months. I didn't plan for it to go this far, but I didn't know how to stop. I've been trying to find something I lost a long time ago, something I thought was still there, in her." He stopped, his eyes searching hers for understanding, but Lily felt no sympathy. "Find what, James?" she asked, her voice trembling with a mix of disbelief and anger. "The life you had before me? The dreams you had before we started a family? That's what this is about." Her hands balled into fists at her sides, but she fought to keep her composure. She couldn't let him see how badly he had broken her. "I don't know," James said, shaking his head, his frustration rising. "It's hard to explain. It was like I was suffocating in my own life. Everything felt so routine. And then Sarah, she was a part of my past. She made me feel alive again. She made me feel like I could be that guy again. The guy I was before all of this." He gestured vaguely toward their home, their children, the life they had built together. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I never wanted to." Lily's heart pounded in her chest. The words he was speaking weren't the ones she had expected. She wanted him to beg for forgiveness, to show genuine remorse. But there was something in his tone, something more selfish, as if this whole affair had been about him rediscovering his youth, rather than about the years of lies he had told her. "Did you ever think about how this would affect me?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Did you ever think about how much I've given up for us? For you? For this family?" "I did," James said, his voice lowering, though the words felt empty. "But I wasn't thinking clearly. He trailed off, unable to finish. Lily let out a sharp laugh, one that didn't feel like laughter at all. It was bitter, tinged with the sting of hurt she had been trying to suppress for far too long. "You weren't thinking clearly," she repeated, shaking her head. "No, you weren't. But you were thinking of yourself, weren't you? You didn't think about me, about us, what I've been through, what I've given up. You just thought about yourself." James opened his mouth to argue, but no words came. He looked at her, with a mixture of guilt and confusion, as if he didn't understand why she was reacting this way. It was maddening to her. After everything they had shared, the life they had built together, and this is what he was offering her in return? Weak excuses and self-pity. "I'm sorry," he said again, though it felt as empty as the words before. "I never meant to hurt you. But Sarah, she's always been there, in the back of my mind. And when she came back into my life, I didn't know how to resist." Lily's breath hitched, and for a moment she couldn't speak. She wanted to scream at him, to make him feel the weight of her heartbreak, but the silence hung thick between them. She had never felt so alone in her life, Not even in those early years of their marriage when they were just starting out. This was different. This wasn't the James she had fallen in love with. It was a man she didn't recognize. Her hands trembled again, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was from rage. All these years, she had been the one who sacrificed, who put her dreams aside for the sake of their family, who stood by him through thick and thin. And now this. "I trusted you, James," she said, her voice raw, trembling with emotion. "I trusted you more than anything. And you betrayed me. Not just with her, but with everything." James reached out as if to take her hand, but she pulled away, her gaze never leaving his. She had trusted him, and he had shattered that trust beyond repair. Lily took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. She couldn't cry. Not yet. Not until she had the answers she needed. "How long, James?" she asked, her voice quiet but steady. "How long has this been going on?" James looked away, his face contorting with guilt. "A few months," he admitted. "But it wasn't just physical. Oh, it's emotional too. I never meant to fall for her again, but it happened. And I don't know how to fix it." The words hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Lily stared at him for a long moment, her mind racing, her heart sinking lower with each passing second. This wasn't the man she had married. This wasn't the life they had built together. She could feel her world crumbling around her, but she knew one thing for certain. This was just the beginning. She wasn't going to let him get away with this, not without a fight. Her voice was low, but full of determination as she spoke. "I need to know everything, James. Everything." And with that, the final pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. The room seemed to close in around them, the silence stretching between Lily and James as he stood there, too paralyzed by his own guilt to offer any more explanations. She wasn't going to let him off the hook, not now, not when everything had been laid bare before her. She was done waiting for him to change, done pretending she didn't see the cracks in their marriage, the slow erosion of trust, the way he had been pulling away from her for months, if not longer. "I deserve the truth, James," Lily said, her voice unwavering, though every word felt like it took every ounce of strength she had left. "If you want to salvage any shred of respect between us, I need you to tell me everything. No more lies. No more half-truths." James let out a sharp breath, his eyes darting toward the ground, as if he was searching for the right words, or perhaps for the courage to speak them. But Lily wasn't going to give him the luxury of time to gather himself. She needed to know now. The truth would be the only thing that could bring her any sort of clarity, and whether it tore them apart or not, she needed it to move forward. "I've been seeing her since February," James finally muttered, his voice hoarse. "We reconnected online. I didn't expect it to turn into this, but once it did, I didn't know how to stop it. It was like opening a door that I couldn't close again. Every time I saw her, it felt like I was back to being the guy I used to be before all of this. The work, the kids, the responsibilities." Lily's chest tightened as she processed his words. February. That was months ago. She had noticed his behavior changing even before that, his growing detachment, the strange late-night calls. But now, the timeline was clear, and with it, the overwhelming realization that this wasn't just a passing affair. It was something deeper, something that had been festering for a long time. "So, this has been going on for over 6 months now," she said, her voice shaking. She couldn't quite control the rush of anger and hurt that surged through her, but she held on to her composure, refusing to let him see how badly she was bleeding inside. 6 months of lies, of betrayal, and all this time you never thought to talk to me, to be honest with me? James opened his mouth to say something, but he was at a loss for words. His silence only deepened Lily's fury. He hadn't even attempted to fix it before it had gone this far, before it had destroyed everything they had built together. "I didn't know how to fix it," James said, his voice almost pleading. I didn't know what I wanted anymore. I wasn't happy, Lily. I wasn't happy for a long time. He stopped, his words faltering. Lily shook her head, her heart sinking further with each confession. So, instead of working through it, you chose to run away, to hide behind her. She paused, her breath shallow, the weight of his betrayal suffocating her. What did you expect, James? That I'd just accept this? That we could just sweep it under the rug and pretend like everything's fine? I never wanted to hurt you, James said again, his voice barely above a whisper. I thought it was just a phase. I thought I could end it and we could go back to how things were. But every time I tried to stop, I couldn't. She was a part of me, Lily. A part of my past that I had never let go of. A part of his past. Lily's mind raced back to the early years of their marriage, to the way James would sometimes talk about Sarah, how he would tell stories about their high school days, the memories they shared. She had always brushed it off, thinking it was just harmless nostalgia. But now it was clear. It wasn't nostalgia for him. It was something much darker. He had never let Sarah go. Not really. And what about us? Lily asked, her voice shaking with the force of the question. What about our memories, our life together? Was it all just a facade to you? Did I mean anything to you at all, James? His expression faltered, and Lily saw the first flicker of real remorse in his eyes. But it was too little, too late. The damage was done, and no amount of regret could undo the hurt he had caused. I love you, Lily, James said, his voice cracking. I do, but I've been lost for so long, and I didn't know how to get back to us. I didn't know how to be the man you needed me to be. Lily's heart clenched. Love. Was that what this had been? The affair? The lies? How could love coexist with betrayal? How could he say he loved her and yet allow this to happen? I loved you too, James, she said, her voice tight. I loved you enough to give up everything for you. I've been your partner for 30 years, James. Through everything, through the hard times, the sacrifices. And you repay me with this. She could feel the anger rising again, burning in her chest. But beneath it all, there was something worse. The deep, aching sadness that made her feel hollow inside. She had spent years building a life with him, a life she had thought was secure, safe from the chaos of the world. But now it was all falling apart, and the weight of that loss was unbearable. I don't know what to say anymore, Lily, James said, his voice low, almost defeated. I don't know how to fix this. Lily looked at him, her eyes cold. You can't fix it, James. Not anymore. What you've done is irreparable. She swallowed hard, the tears threatening to fall but somehow remaining trapped behind the dam she had built around her heart. I don't know who you are anymore, and I don't know if I can ever forgive you for this. The finality of her words hung in the air, a painful silence settling between them. James opened his mouth to speak again, but no sound came. He simply stood there, lost in his own guilt, as Lily turned away from him, her heart heavy with the weight of what had just been revealed. She needed space, time to think, to breathe, to try to make sense of the chaos that had just consumed her life. The party continued inside, the laughter and music now a distant echo, but Lily felt as if she were miles away, trapped in a world of her own making, unable to escape the crushing weight of betrayal. She stepped toward the door, her hand trembling as she reached for the handle. Before she could open it, she heard the sound of footsteps behind her. Lily, please, James said, his voice filled with desperation. Please don't walk away from me. But Lily didn't turn around. She knew, deep down, that she had already walked away. The moment he chose Sarah over her, she had lost him. And there was no going back. The cold air outside hit Lily's face as she stepped into the quiet of the garden. The moonlight reflected off the dew-covered grass, but it felt like a different world out here, far away from the turmoil that had just unfolded inside. The laughter from the party seemed muffled, like it was happening in another dimension, one that no longer included her, no longer belonged to the life she thought she had. Lily walked down the garden path, each step taking her further from the house, from the life she had known. She couldn't go back inside, not yet, not while her heart was in pieces, and not while the man she had spent 30 years building a future with had shattered everything in one conversation. Her breath came in shallow bursts, but she tried to steady herself. The tears that had threatened to spill in front of James were now close to the surface, but she refused to let them fall. Not yet. She needed to be strong, even though the foundation of everything she had believed in felt like it was crumbling around her. She couldn't let him see her break. Her mind raced as she walked aimlessly, trying to make sense of what had just happened. 6 months. For 6 months, he had been seeing Sarah. 6 months of lies. How could he have kept it from her for so long? How could he have looked her in the eye every day and pretended everything was fine? She had given him her heart, her trust, and he had betrayed it, betrayed everything they had built. A gust of wind blew through the trees, sending a shiver down her spine, and for the first time, she realized how alone she felt. Not just in that moment, but in their entire marriage. Had she always been alone, even when they were together? Had her life always been about maintaining a facade? The questions buzzed in her head, louder than the wind in the trees. Lily stopped near the bench under the large oak tree, her fingers tracing the carved wood absent-mindedly. She could remember when they had first moved into this house. They had sat here, just the two of them, looking out at the stars, making promises to each other. Promises they had both believed in. At least, she had. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps behind her. She didn't need to turn around to know it was James. He was the only one who would be brave enough, or foolish enough to follow her out here. She could feel the weight of his presence, the apology hanging in the air between them, but she wasn't ready to face him. Not yet. "Lily," he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Please, can we talk? Please." She didn't answer him at first. The hurt was still too fresh, too raw. But she knew he wasn't going to give up easily, and part of her wanted to hear what else he had to say, even if she knew it would hurt her more. "Talk?" she asked, finally turning to face him. "What is there to talk about, James? You've said it all. You've admitted to the affair, to lying to me for months. You've shattered everything we had. What more is there?" He looked at her, his face a mixture of regret and desperation. "I never meant for it to happen this way," he said, stepping closer. "I thought I could stop. I thought I could make it right. I thought you wouldn't find out." "Of course you thought that," Lily replied bitterly, "because you never thought about how it would affect me. You never thought about how I would feel when I found out. You just did whatever you wanted and hoped I wouldn't notice." She shook her head. "How could you do this to me, James?" "I wasn't thinking," he said, his voice cracking. "I was just trying to find something that I lost, something I didn't even know was missing. Sarah, she made me feel like I was young again, like I mattered. But it was a mistake. I see that now. It was all a mistake." Lily's heart twisted in her chest. This wasn't the apology she had wanted. This wasn't the man she had married. The James she had known would have done anything to make it right. But this James was selfish, lost in his own desires, unwilling to confront the damage he had caused. She had given him everything, but to him, it wasn't enough. "I gave you everything, James," she whispered, her voice trembling despite her efforts to stay strong. "I gave you my love, my trust, my heart, and you threw it all away for her, for some fantasy. You don't even realize what you've lost, what I've lost." She could see the tears in his eyes, the regret, the guilt that seemed to consume him. But there was no empathy in her heart for him. He had taken her for granted for too long. He had let this happen, and now there was nothing left to fix it. "I'm sorry," he said again, his voice barely audible, his face full of anguish. "I don't expect you to forgive me, but I am sorry. I've ruined everything." Lily didn't respond. She couldn't. There were no more words that could make this right. She had spent years thinking they had a perfect life, a perfect marriage, and now she realized it had all been an illusion, a carefully constructed lie, held together by their shared history, but hollow underneath. "I'm done, James," she said finally, her voice steady despite the rawness inside her. "I can't do this anymore. I can't live in this lie. I can't keep pretending everything's okay. Not when I know what you've done." She swallowed hard, the weight of her decision settling in. "I need to move on. I need to find myself again." James took a step toward her, his hand reaching out as if to grab hers. But Lily took a step back, putting distance between them. "Please," he said, his voice pleading, "don't do this. I love you, Lily. I need you. I can't lose you." Lily looked at him, her eyes cold and full of sorrow. "You already have," she said quietly. "You already lost me the moment you chose her over me." There was a long pause, the silence so thick it felt suffocating. She could see the weight of her words sinking in, the realization that he had destroyed everything. And with that, Lily turned and walked away, leaving him standing in the darkness of the garden, the weight of his choices pressing down on him. She didn't look back. As she walked back toward the house, toward the life she no longer recognized, Lily felt a strange sense of calm settle over her. It wasn't relief, not yet. But it was the first step toward reclaiming herself, toward finding peace in the midst of the chaos. She had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in years, she felt like she was taking control of her own life. And that was enough for now. The house felt different as Lily stepped inside. The laughter and music from the party still echoed through the walls. But it all seemed distant, like she was standing on the edge of a world she no longer belonged to. It was a strange, surreal feeling, like waking from a long, comforting dream, only to realize it had all been a lie. Anna and Tom were seated in the living room, talking softly. They didn't know yet, and Lily wasn't sure how or when to tell them. The truth had shattered her world in an instant. How would they handle it? How could she protect them from the pain that was coming? "Mom, you okay?" Anna asked, her voice laced with concern as she stood up to walk over to her mother. Lily forced a smile, but it felt stiff, unnatural. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just need a moment." Anna's eyes softened with sympathy. "You sure?" Lily nodded, her throat tight. She couldn't bear to show her daughter the depth of her pain. Not yet. It wasn't Anna's burden to bear. "I'm just tired," Lily said, her voice quieter now. She needed to pull herself together. "Go enjoy the rest of the party. I'll be all right." Anna hesitated for a moment, before nodding and returning to her conversation with Tom, though the worried glance she shot her mother lingered in the air. Lily watched them for a moment, her heart aching at the thought of how much they would be hurt by what she was about to do. But there was no way around it. She couldn't keep living a lie. Not anymore. She walked to the window, looking out at the garden where James still stood, his face shadowed, his posture defeated. But she didn't feel pity for him. If anything, she felt a deep, profound sorrow. For herself, for him, for the family they used to be. She had given him so much of herself over the years. Her love, her time, her patience. And now she had to give up the only thing that was left, the illusion that they could go back to who they once were. The truth had come crashing down on her, and now there was no escaping it. She heard the soft click of the door opening behind her, and when she turned, James stepped inside. His face was pale, his eyes red from crying, and for a fleeting moment, she almost felt sorry for him. But the feeling was gone as quickly as it had come. His tears didn't change anything. They didn't erase the damage he had caused, or the years of doubt, neglect, and betrayal. "I'm sorry, Lily," he said, his voice hoarse. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to know that I regret everything." Lily looked at him, her heart heavy but resolute. She didn't want to hear his apologies anymore, not when they had lost their meaning. "I know you're sorry," she replied softly, the words tasting like ashes in her mouth. "But it's too late for that, James. You've hurt me beyond repair, and no amount of regret can change that." She paused, her mind racing as she realized what she needed to do next. The divorce, the separation, everything was inevitable now. She couldn't keep living in this fractured shell of a marriage, pretending everything was okay, when it was clear that it never would be again. Lily took a deep breath, her voice steady. "I'm done, James. I can't keep doing this. I'm going to file for divorce." James looked at her, a mixture of disbelief and anguish crossing his face. He opened his mouth to say something, but she held up her hand, silencing him. "You've already made your choice," she said firmly. "You chose her. You chose your past over me. I don't know who you are anymore, but I know I can't live in this. I can't live in a lie." She walked past him, her footsteps echoing in the quiet hallway. For a moment she felt like a stranger in her own home, like the walls, the rooms, everything that once felt so familiar had become a prison. But as she moved toward the staircase, she realized something. She was walking toward freedom. The pain of what had happened would stay with her for a long time, but it wouldn't define her. Anna and Tom were hurt, confused, and angry. They had seen their father as a role model, and now they had to reconcile the image they had of him with the reality of his actions. Lily didn't have all the answers. She didn't know how to make it better for them, but she knew one thing. She would be there for them no matter what. It wasn't easy. The nights were long, and the moments of doubt crept in when she was alone. But each day, she took small steps toward reclaiming her life, toward healing. One evening, as Lily sat at the dining table with Anna and Tom, the three of them sharing a quiet meal together, she realized that they had found their new rhythm. They were healing together, and though the future was uncertain, one thing was clear: they were stronger than they had ever been before. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but Lily was no longer afraid. She had faced the darkness of betrayal and emerged with a renewed sense of purpose. She was ready to embrace the future, one step at a time, and with that, she knew that no matter what came next, she would be okay. She had finally learned how to love herself again.